What's up, everybody? My name is Rob Payon, and welcome to the Proof of Talent podcast, the show where we talk about everything related to the career journey within the blockchain, crypto, and Web3 space. Today, we have a great interview. It is with Sarah Howe from ConsenSys, and she is somebody that has been involved in the talent ecosystem in the crypto landscape, specifically with Ethereum and ConsenSys, for quite some time, since 2017. So she has seen some ups, some downs, everything in between. And this is a really great conversation talking through scaling a company through good times, through bad times, and learning a lot throughout the process. So if you're interested in that, make sure to stay tuned. Prior to hopping into that interview, if you are looking for a new opportunity within the crypto space, please feel free to reach out to our team at Proof of Talent. I'll put a link below down in the description, as well as if you are right now hiring, looking to build out your team within the space, we are happy to have a conversation about how we can help you to find some great talent for your team. So also a link below as well. Now let's hop into that interview with Sarah. Sarah, thanks so much for taking the time to join the Proof of Talent podcast. I really appreciate it. You have been in the space now since, according to LinkedIn, December 2017, which is a few more months professionally than I have, which means you've been in the space now for approximately 40 years. What has it been like watching ConsenSys grow and being a part of that growth at ConsenSys from December 2017 until now?
Yeah, and thanks, Rob. And it's great to be here. Appreciate you inviting me on. Yeah, and it will be my 6-year anniversary in a couple of weeks here at ConsenSys. And yeah, crypto math, that's, as you said, like 40 years. It's been a wild ride. When I joined ConsenSys, we were very much sort of structured as, these disparate but somewhat slightly connected projects that were very siloed. So having watched that evolution over the last 6 years has been really, really exciting. I started at ConsenSys on the Protocol Engineering team, and I'd come out of software development consultancy, and blockchain was really such a buzzword back then. And in my mind, I was trying to understand, is this just sort of a marketing, jargon sort of buzz, or is this something real? And interviewing with ConsenSys, I really drunk the Kool-Aid. So joined on the protocol engineering team, definitely a baptism by fire into the blockchain space, really kind of hardcore, right at the sort of the guts of the blockchain. So had to very quickly try and understand all the concepts that came with that. And my role was really around anything people related for the protocol engineering team. So anything from onboarding to HR business partner support through to hiring, you name it. If it related to people, I was involved. My career trajectory at ConsenSys evolved with the organizational structure. So we, roughly 2 years into my tenure at ConsenSys, we reorganized the business, and I was then bubbled into the broader people and talent team, where I very much was playing a senior human resources business partner position and supporting groups like the protocol engineering team, our Infura team, which is infrastructure, developer infrastructure and tools, and anything in between. And about 2.5 years ago, the chief of people, Amanda Kelleher, approached me and said, "Hey, you've got this amazing background in recruitment. Would you consider stepping into the head of talent role?" And that position had been played, informally over the years, but it was more formalized with the new org structure. We didn't have a real foundation or a universally sort of accessible approach to recruitment here at ConsenSys. So a lot of my work over the last 2 years has been really foundational, building out best practices, understanding the team structure, how we serve the business, how we meet demand with hiring, implementing an ATS or applicant tracking system, and also doing a lot of training across the business. So it's been a wild ride. It has been absolutely chaotic at times, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I think coming at such an early stage startup, you really get those opportunities to be sort of very creative and to build things from scratch, develop new policies and processes, that apply to, the context here at ConsenSys. And there's a lot of, failing fast, but kind of keeping it together as you're failing and learning from that and improving as you move forward. So that's my journey in a nutshell.
It's obviously quite the journey. I have not been in this space nearly as long as you guys, but ConsenSys is one of the first companies I heard about in Web3. And I'm very curious. Like, at what point, what was the company size when you first joined ConsenSys? Where are you guys at now? And what are some of the key lessons you kind of learned along the way when you were scaling?
Yeah, when I joined, ConsenSys would have been circa, I would say, around 1,000 people back then. I may need to fact check that, but there was a lot of people. But that's a real signal of the time, because we were so distributed in terms of the projects that we were working on. It was sort of hard to understand who was at ConsenSys. And a lot of the times, I'd be at a networking event and I'd be like, "Where do you work?" And they're like, "Oh, ConsenSys." And I'm like, "Oh, me too." So it was really, really interesting. Where we are today, we're at around 830 people. And really focusing in on being a Web3 software company. And a lot of our products that we have today really speak to that strategic direction that we're traveling in. Of course, MetaMask is probably our most famous product, shortly followed by Infura, as well as Linear and our NFT platform.
With the amount of change that's happened in the space, because things are like wild, whether it's just in the industry from a broad spectrum, but even specifically like Ethereum, since that's where a lot of the ConsenSys focus is on the Ethereum ecosystem. Like, how have you, just on like a personal level, how have you been able to adjust to the changing like industry landscape, as well as like the changing landscape within ConsenSys? Because I think it's gone through its fair share of iterations over the past 6 years. Like, has that been a challenging thing for you, or have you been able to just kind of roll with those just changes of within the industry over time?
It's been tumultuous, and I think all of us in Web3 can completely agree with that sentiment. It's certainly at ConsenSys, we were, in a long phase of figuring out what our value proposition was. We knew we had all these great products, but we really wanted to sort of hone in on exactly what that sweet spot was. And I think over that time, we've really been positioned to do that well. And with the industry flows, the macroeconomic environment, it's chaotic, and it's not for the faint-hearted. I think for me personally, I'm quite adaptable, and I certainly come to work every day on the mindset of what's going to change today. I find that personally very exciting, but there are of course many people out there that don't find that exciting, and find that actually really quite stressful. But I think in a large part, what lowers my anxiety is the solid communication at ConsenSys. We have monthly town halls where Joe will personally, get up and speak for at least, 20, sometimes 30 minutes, really communicating, what his vision is, and his sentiments on the market and what's happening. Joe does lead with a lot of optimism, and I'm a very optimistic person as well. And so I find that extremely reassuring. But I think it really does just come back to that communication. And the other wonderful thing at ConsenSys is we really do have an open door policy, and I know at any time, and so does my team, we can go to the senior leaders of the business and talk to them about our concerns, or clarify certain things that may be happening in the market that we want a bit more information on. So I do think we do a great job of that. It's hard, and it's taken a while to get to that place. But we certainly, I feel, we've nailed it now. And so that gives me a lot of reassurance in my day-to-day operations here at ConsenSys.
That's honestly beautiful to have a leadership team that's so receptive to people that are, I guess, I wouldn't say below them, but just like not in those positions of just offering your advice, feedback. I guess, how has that contributed towards the growth of just like the people function, the talent team? I'd love to hear more about that in general.
Yeah, certainly. We, as to the extent that we operate with transparency, and that really is sort of core to our cultural vibe here at ConsenSys. And I think what that does for employees is really just break down that barrier to entry. I've certainly been in companies in the past whereby you don't have that same level of trust, or comfort when it comes to speaking to senior leaders. We do open a multitude of different opportunities and avenues for employees to self-serve. What might work for me may not work for somebody else. And so we spend a lot of time creating like employee resource groups, for example, where people can join these groups, they opt in, and they can go in there and it's a safe space and they can talk about certain things that may be on their mind or certain things that, are exciting or concerning. In addition to the ERGs, we ran a program this year called ConsenSys Layer Zero, or CLZ. And really what that is opening up different opportunities and avenues for employees to get in touch with our senior leaders. For example, as part of the CLZ program, we had an AMA session with our executive leadership team, and they were nervous going in. They were like, my goodness, what kind of questions, what are we exposing ourselves to here? But they felt it was the right thing. And again, leading with that transparency. And it was a huge success. The signal from that leadership team, saying, hey, we're going to put ourselves out there and we're going to allow you to ask us anything. And we're not going to moderate it. The questions were coming in and they would read the questions as they were presented. And I think, again, that just gave that really positive signal to the broader, employee base around, you can talk to us, you can ask us anything and share anything that might be on your mind. So I think investing that time in the communication, again, is really, really important in terms of building up trust and psychological safety within your organization.
Yeah, it's one of the topics I think that comes up pretty significantly when we talk about, I guess, leadership strategies in general or success in leadership. And it seems, especially like with the C-suite or the companies that have, it seems like a good culture is just that communication from, it doesn't necessarily just need to be the C-suite, but just good communication across the board, not leaving team members in the dark and just being relatively or just totally transparent about how things are going and where things are, especially in an industry like this where it is volatile, and depending upon the person that's working in the space, like that can be, I think, especially for a newer person, it can be like a really jarring experience. And if there's not that level of leadership transparency, it's scary for a lot of people. So when you provide that, I think it puts a lot of minds at ease and makes things a little bit easier from a working standpoint. One thing I'm curious about, more maybe on the talent side, is just how things have changed over the past 6 years, at whether it's specifically within your role or just in the talent community at ConsenSys at large, but how the talent landscape or the recruiting process has changed over the past few years for you, because I'm sure it's a little bit different nowadays than it was in 2017, 2018 timeframe.
Absolutely. Certainly the earlier challenges for us, ConsenSys, again, due to the fact that we were sort of these, more or less an incubator for all these different types of projects, it was very difficult for us to get a foothold on a brand and a brand presence. I think ConsenSys was a brand, but, attracting candidates in to not just ConsenSys, but to Linear or to MetaMask, it was challenging. And even 2 years ago, when I stepped into the role of head of talent, we really struggled to get inbound applications. So we had to do a lot of legwork to try and find where these candidates were hiding. And, certainly too, the industry was brand new and there was a lot of skepticism. People were like, oh, here we go. Blockchain, is this real? And so we had a lot of battles on that front to really sort of overcome. The way things are now, we're in a very luxurious position here at ConsenSys. We've received over 220,000 applications alone this year. So now we have a new problem, and that wow. problem is ensuring that we uphold our, positive candidate experience and get back to everybody as quickly as possible. So we've sort of gone from one extreme to the next. And so really what we're focusing in on now is we have the quantity, but we need to filter for the quality. So we actually spend probably the lion's share of our week, really going through resumes. Yes, we're not using AI for that. We do use sort of top of funnel application questions to sort of help encourage candidates to apply to the right role for them to match their skills and experience. But we do spend an exorbitant amount of time really getting back to candidates and talking to them and engaging with them. I think too, the industry is proving itself out, and we can see that with upticks in crypto, which is always a positive signal. But again, I still think there's for some of the best people and high potential individuals out there, there's still quite a lot of skepticism, and I think for us as an industry, we still have more work to do to prove our value, to prove our worth, to prove that this truly is the future in terms of technology and where we're going with that. So. Yeah, that would be my musings there.
How is it just feasible or but like I'm really curious, since we certainly get our fair share of inbound applications, but not 210,000 in a year. How does one build a team and structure processes that allow you, because I'm sure, like you said, it's an incredible volume and sure a huge challenge to review that volume of applications. What has been the process like to structure things around both finding the gems in those applications, but also, like you said, creating a positive experience for, I'm sure, many people that are not a fit for those positions as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And so essentially the way my team is structured is I do have them dedicated to certain business groups within ConsenSys. So, I have one recruiter focused on MetaMask. I have others focused on marketing or corporate. And what that allows is it allows the recruiter to deeply understand that segment of our business and to create relationships with those hiring managers and leads of that business. We also do a lot of training, a lot of interviewer training, and I can appreciate this isn't accessible to smaller companies, but training can be simple. It can be as easy as an engineer or a CTO hopping up on a lunch and learn and explaining exactly what this role is, what we are looking for, why it's important, how this is going to impact, our product roadmap or our bottom line, or, ensuring team harmony. And so really deeply understanding what it is we're hiring and why we need it. And then in terms of the filtering the applications, we do lean on our interviewing teams in the business quite heavily to support with that. But that's not sustainable when you're getting to, hundreds of thousands of applications. So we have also implemented top of funnel assessments. And really what that means is when a candidate applies to a job, they hop into our system, Greenhouse we use as our ATS. They get an automatic email saying, hey, we're working on it, bear with us. Again, that communication piece. And if we don't get to that application within 5 days, they get another email saying, give us a bit more time. We're a little overwhelmed with a lot of these applications. And so we have that automation going. But we've implemented an assessment, and we use a product called Vervo, which actually is reasonably priced, certainly for us. And we have all sorts of assessments loaded into that platform. So an engineering role might be, a pair programming exercise, or it might be a problem to solve, or it might be a small quiz. A marketing role might be, a social media exercise or assessment. And so what we're doing now is we're more or less using that tool to help filter and to help qualify those candidates and to narrow down our shortlist. And then it does get a little manual. So then our recruiters or our business groups are going in and reviewing all of those qualified resumes. It's not perfect. We're continuing that experiment. But what's really important for us is the human touch. We're fully aware of all the AI tools out there and having, machines review resumes. And we really, again, lean into that sort of positive candidate experience. And we feel that the human touch is required. But it does take a lot of work. And we're constantly looking for new ways to adapt and evolve. But that's sort of where we're currently at today.
I do want to highlight too your comment on strong branding. Obviously, a lot of what we do at Proof of Talent is working with early stage founders, and for them to attract a founding engineer, founding anything, full stack engineer, marketing, they need to have a strong brand, especially in the Web3 ecosystem. And I just want to make sure we really highlight that as well too, because that's the foundation of why someone's going to want to join your team. I guess outside of this massive inbound that you guys are receiving from your for applications, what other strategies are you guys using to attract talent?
And you're right. It's difficult when you're a smaller startup to, and as I said earlier, we're in a luxurious position now with ConsenSys. Our branding team has done a phenomenal job building that brand. In the earlier days at ConsenSys, that wasn't a luxury that I had. And, what I would do back then is really lean on the employees that I had access to within ConsenSys. And we used tactics back then. One in particular that stands out as an example is paired sourcing, and that's a play on paired programming. So myself or a recruiter would hop on a call with either one or a couple of employees, and we would prepare Boolean search strings. If you don't know what that is, I mean, it's a very effective, I'm sure a lot of your audience knows that. Chat GPT is your best friend with Boolean search these days. In fact, we do all of our search strings through Chat GPT. And essentially, we would give them those search strings and have them open up their LinkedIn and then run those searches so that we were tapping into their networks. But I think networking is a very important activity for any early stage startup to do. You're probably doing that as part of your normal building the business practices anyway. But Web3 is just so incredible in that there are so many events. There's such a warm, welcoming community, and you just have, far easier access than what we certainly had in Web2. So really leaning into that networking, and again, ensuring that your overall experience is positive. But the other piece here is just absolute clarity on why it's exciting to work for your business. We got that really wrong in the early days when I was on the Protocol Engineering team. And I think all of us, had a very different story to tell when it came to our narrative and what we were doing. Of course, we all understood what we were doing, but the way we were selling it wasn't consistent. And so I think really leaning into that clarity around the vision and why this is super cool and awesome, and putting yourself in the shoes of the candidate, why would they want to work with you? So I think answering those key questions is critical when you're building a business.
Going back to some of the iterations of ConsenSys and obviously your participation within those, if I remember correctly, half of Brooklyn at a certain point in time not worked at ConsenSys, but everybody in crypto that lived in Brooklyn that I ever met worked at ConsenSys, and you had a huge both headcount footprint, but also physical footprint within Brooklyn. And now I believe that there is at least a greater percentage of remote talent within the organization. Is that correct?
That is correct. We have employees in 41 countries globally.
Wow.
As of today.
So cool.
So, and actually, Rob, to be perfectly honest, I think a lot of the Brooklyn vibe, COVID sort of, crushed those dreams more or less. And I think too, we attribute a lot of this to our CPO, Amanda Kelleher. She's very hot on let's be remote. Let's truly embrace what remote working means. And, giving our employees access to those tools that they need to get work done, but also creating spaces and opportunities for people to continuously connect. Being remote, we're not in the office. We don't have those water cooler chats or those coffee chats or, hey, what are you working on chats? And so we leverage a lot of remote working tools. Slack's, of course, one of the big ones. We have coffee bots set up on our Slack. And so we get matched, if you opt in, you get matched with people across the business that you get to meet and hang out with and just have those water cooler chats. But the footprint has certainly changed. And I also used to live in Brooklyn. I took the COVID opportunity to move to a warmer climate here in Florida. So it definitely changed. But what we're finding is by continually focusing on that as a problem space and continually sort of thinking around innovative ways and what does our future of work look like here at ConsenSys, we have that continued focus and we continually adjust and evolve and create those opportunities for employees to remain in touch without having to be in person. But it's a challenge.
As a manager, of teams and individuals, have you had to change the way you operate from going from an in-person type of environment to, in the past few years, going remote at this point?
Yes, I certainly have. My team is now skewed towards Europe. So the big change for me is having to get up early in the morning and start my day quite early. and I'm not a morning person. So that's been quite a tough adjustment. But I think, for me as a leader, making myself available as much as I humanly possibly can to my team has been really important. We use Notion a lot for project management, and really keeping our eye on the prize in terms of our goals through Notion. And that's sort of an accountability mechanism as well. So when it's documented, when it's written, we focus on it. It gets done most of the time. And we certainly do. We are quite meeting heavy. I will admit that. It is something that I am focusing on in 2024. I don't know about you all or the audience. For me, Zoom fatigue is real. Sitting on back-to-back Zooms all day can be incredibly taxing.
So we have you on a podcast
Right. I mean, but it's real. And so for me, a really big piece of being a leader is listening. And I do spend quite a lot of time. I invest quite a lot of time in my one-on-ones with my team, and I do ask them a consistent set of questions. How are you feeling? Do you need time off? How's this meeting working for you? Does that time suit you? Should we mix it up? And so we're constantly listening and adjusting how we approach that. But it can be challenging.
Yeah, I can't imagine going from having like a heavily in office, workforce to then having a globally distributed team in 41 countries. Very curious to just discuss like that process, that transition of like the best tips or just like lessons you've learned as to managing a distributed workforce.
Setting expectations. I am so crystal clear on my expectations of my team. And I use tools and mechanisms to continually, keep an eye on those expectations. And the way I really try and think about my expectations for my team is, what are the expected outcomes? What is it that I think that you should be doing or that you want to be doing, and how are we tracking to that? And so we use the OKR framework here at ConsenSys, and I also use that in my team. And I make that a very collaborative process. I want them to be brought into to my vision and to our goals as a team. And I will absolutely, hear them out on certain points, and we co-create those goals. Of course, I'm constantly thinking about the broader business and what we're trying to achieve as ConsenSys, but I put so much focus on that. We have end of month OKR check-ins as a team, and that's where we sort of go through the list. And that also not only keeps my team members accountable, but it also allows them to flag early if something is creeping, or something has become a blocker. And I then give the team an opportunity to sort of problem solve live. And my team love that. And they love ideation exercises and activities like that. But I think it's super important to be very, very clear on those expectations. And I say this all the time to my team, I don't want you working ridiculous hours. But I don't want you either to be just a bum in a seat 9 to 5. So do what you need to do to get the results. And again, just that really clear sort of results focus is how I operate.
I think culture can be something that is challenging in any organization, but especially in one that's as distributed as yours is. I'd love to hear just your maybe high level thoughts on culture, whether it's just at a company level or if you want to take it specifically in regards to the talent acquisition process. I would love to just kind of get some thoughts there as far as, your kind of opinion or process around culture, specifically within, such a distributed workforce.
Absolutely. Culture will happen organically, and so I think it is important. And we did a huge program of work here at ConsenSys where we articulated that culture, and it was a culture that had organically, started to thrive and get out there. And we do pull on the tenets of Web3 culture. I think the most profound piece of work that we did as an organization was we evaluated and redesigned our core values. And so we have 5 core values, and we really focus, and we actually have OKRs around those values as well. And we celebrate the values. I think values, they don't embed overnight. And so we've had to do a lot of sort of peripheral activities in order to get those embedded. But for example, one of our core values is we act with kindness. And I'm sure you can imagine immediately, there are a lot of, wonderful things that you could do with that particular value. We celebrate World Kindness Day. We have that as a part of our performance review process. What values does this person personify at ConsenSys? How did that come to life? We have done, employee stories about, specific values and how that resonated with them. So again, it kind of ties back into that big communication piece. It is challenging, very challenging. But we begin to start exploring those values with candidates. So before anybody even joins ConsenSys, we actually have an entire stage of our interview process that is designed to talk about our values. And we're not looking for a values fit. That I think that's really archaic thinking. Like, are you a culture fit? Are you a values fit? No, what we're looking for is a values alignment. So, what stage of the journey might this person be on in terms of, aligning to our core values? And the other really nice thing about having core values is sometimes they just don't resonate with people, and that's perfectly fine. You can self-select out of our interview process if you don't want to act with kindness. Hopefully no one listening is sort of on that track, but they really do help keep that focus on the culture and keep that culture thriving. And again, that listening piece is really key, making sure that people are understanding, those values and understanding how that impacts and affects their work and the decisions that they're making here at ConsenSys. So I really... I can't recommend the values piece enough. It has been game changing for us culturally here at ConsenSys.
I love this conversation because you've touched on multiple factors within a business that not only are super important for, a company of your guys' size, but also for early stage. And looking at values, that's a great tool to attract great candidates, great talent. I know you went into this just. For me, if I'm looking at another company, or if I was, right, who am I representing? Who am I working for, and what impact are they making within this ecosystem? And I think for a lot of us, that's why we're in this space, right, to make an impact. So I just want to say, well done to your team on that side of the house. And I guess from there, I'd love to transition, right? We're in Q4 of 2023, sorry. And now is the time for companies be focused on headcount and planning. I'd love to learn a little bit more about ConsenSys' strategy with headcount planning and how you guys approach that. Yeah,
sure. I got to tell you both and everyone in the audience, headcount planning has been really challenging in this industry. To go from bull to bear and to sort of, constantly be tweaking and adjusting. And certainly from a talent acquisition perspective, in previous positions, we could do an annual headcount plan and I would set my team up and all of my activities around that annual plan. That is not a reality for us in this space right now. What we do, it's a collaboration, of course, between finance, what money do we have without impacting our runway, our operations team, our, product leads are involved, and really it's a very labor intensive piece of work that we do every year. We actually operate on a fiscal calendar, so we do this around sort of June, July time. But essentially, we will empower our senior leads of the business to look at their team design and understand, what are the skills gap missing in their human capital, and what do we need to do to change that to meet our objectives, to bolster the team, to bring in new skills and experiences. And so we really lean on our senior leaders in the business. They will submit all of their headcount requests, and that comes into a working group made up of, myself, our senior people partners, or HR business partners as they're often known, our chief people officer, our COO, our CFO, and we look at all of the numbers in totality, and we develop our plan, and we understand at that point sort of when we're going to be sequencing these hires. We might have a feature launch here that requires a certain skill set. Well, we've got to hire that person in Q1, otherwise we won't be able to achieve that in Q2. So we do have quite lengthy discussions on that. What we find then is we adjust. What we don't find, we absolutely adjust quarterly. And so we take a look at the market conditions, we take a look at success we've had with hiring or failures we've had with hiring, and then we adjust those plans. And because things are changing all the time, almost every day. It is a really, it's a big challenge, but I like to think of it through sort of your team design and your capacity to meet your goals, is absolutely key to your headcount planning, and then sort of mapping that to, do we have the money to invest in that? Is this the right move for us strategically as an organization? How does that play into our longer term vision and goals? We don't use anything sophisticated for workforce planning here at ConsenSys. We actually have a gigantic Google Sheet that we operate out of, but we found that that's an effective tool for us. We may explore sort of headcount planning platforms in the future, but for now, it's just in a scrappy Google Sheet. But it can be very complex, particularly again in this industry.
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like sometimes I get asked, both internally and externally, like, what are your plans for the future of the company, and like, what's your super long term vision? And the vast majority of the time, like, I think in 3 to 6 month increments, and I can't go beyond that because I have no idea what's going to happen in this industry, and it's way too crazy for me to know what's going to happen and how to adjust a business around that. If I since we only focus on this, like, that's all you can do is really 3 to 6 month increments sometimes.
Absolutely. And just really quickly again on that, I think that's where your team design is critically important, because understanding the gaps and in skills and experience is absolutely key. And that then allows you to stack rank, right? So if there's one critical role that you need to hire to build out your overall design of your team, that's what you start with. And then the next month you sort of think, okay, well, how are we tracking? Can we do the next 3 on the list? And we sort of take it from there. So we do a lot of heavy prioritization, but it's tough. It's really tough.
And Sarah, how does data play a part in your guys' talent function? And how soon should founders start implementing that within their talent strategy?
Data is absolutely key to talent acquisition here at ConsenSys. I mentioned some numbers around the volumes of applications we're getting in, but we really use that as a way to sort of ground ourselves in, are we doing well? What can we do more of? What do we need to do less of? And where are those improvement areas? And so we use an applicant tracking system, Greenhouse, which I've mentioned, and that has some pretty sophisticated reporting capabilities. Things that I look at, I'm particularly interested in our source of hire, like where are people hearing about us? How are they coming to apply to that job? Because for me, that means that any of my employer branding activities, do I double down? Do I walk away? What's my return on investment from investing in that sort of employer brand activity? And then what I also look at in the data is the pipeline health. And so are we consistently seeing that our pipelines are blocked or slowed down at particular stages of interview? We used to do a take-home test, like a technical challenge, and it was taking candidates upward of 10 days to complete. And that was a massive red flag for me. I'm like, if anything is taking somebody 10 days on average, that's an issue. It either means that it's way too complex and time intensive for the candidate. It means that maybe the assessment itself isn't clear. But essentially, by looking at that data, that's what sort of gives you the hints as to what might be working or not working in your processes. Another big piece of data for me is our candidate survey. And so every single candidate that we meet at ConsenSys will get this automated survey. And it was a little nerve-wracking because we knew our candidate experience a couple of years ago was really not up to par. But you've really got to be bold, and you've got to just look at that data, and you've got to own it. You've got to own it. Because if you don't and you just try and ignore it, it just gets worse. Our Glassdoor reviews years ago were horrific, and I would read that and just think, my goodness, these poor people are just having such a horrid experience with us. We need to own this and we need to address it. And so, data can be very confronting, but it's magic if you're, gutsy and you're willing to take on the feedback. So I really, we are very data driven in the talent team here at ConsenSys. And look, we don't get it 100% right every single time, but we're usually aware of it when we're not getting it right. And that's a much better conversation to have with an executive when they hear something in the industry. Oh, we heard that such and such happened in this interview, and I'm like, I'm aware of that, and here's what we're doing to address it. So yeah, I think you can start even small data insights, even if you're just a small startup. Just make it, it can even be qualitative, like, hey, new person that's just joined my team, tell me about your interview experience, or tell me about your interviewers, or how did you think the onboarding process went? So even those little snippets of feedback, you can build into a bigger picture and use to create solutions to improve your processes overall.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and maybe something we can finish off on here too is like you had mentioned, the data. It's great to collect the data, but I also think a lot of people collect data and don't actually do anything with it. And a couple of different things that you had mentioned specifically is looking at the data and determining, oh, this interview, this assessment is taking way too long. We should shorten the assessment, or our feedback on the interview process is negative. We need to change that, and actually putting things into practice, because I feel like there's a lot of times, and this could be hiring related or not even hiring related, but like especially now with the amount of technology we have in place, it's very easy to collect data. It's not so easy to actually implement solutions to affect the data in a positive manner. And the fact that you're able to interpret that properly and make those decisions, I think is like the key to actually being successful, whether it's in a talent process or just in anything in general here. Just to finish off, I'd love to hear if, over the next like 3-6 months, if there's anything at ConsenSys or just industry wide that you're really excited about, looking forward to, or just kind of like thinking about moving forward as we head into the new year.
Absolutely. One of the really, I suppose, big, challenging, exciting opportunities that we're looking at is how do we become more Web3 native in our recruiting process? There's a lot of companies and DAOs out there that are doing some really cool, initiatives around sort of hiring and your Web3 resume and things like that. We're actually looking, I can't reveal too much, but we're actually looking at through the lens of NFTs and sort of gamifying, a little bit our interview process. So that's certainly one way. And the reason I'm excited about that is because we're really introducing candidates, whether they're Web3 savvy or not, to Web3 and what we're about, and really sort of bringing to life what we believe in throughout that interview process. So watch this space. We'll be launching that next year, hopefully with a bit of a fanfare around it. But there are a lot of other companies out there doing similar initiatives. But I'm really excited about bringing people into the community and on the journey of Web3. And so that's what I'm looking forward to next year.
I'm excited for that. That's some alpha. That's gonna be special for sure. I haven't seen that implemented, and it's going to be a great time as well too. I mean, kind of reflecting on what we've been seeing in the ecosystem the past couple of weeks, past couple of months, there's definitely more hiring going on. So if you're a candidate or hiring manager listening right now, it's a great time to really be intentional with what your plans are for Q1. So, but yeah, just wanted to say thank you, Sarah, for coming on the pod. I know we got to meet in Paris at ECC. Both spoke on a panel at Web3 Talent Fair. Shout out to Benoit. And it's cool that we're continuing to build our relationship and learn more about your story in the space.
Absolutely. It's been a blast. Thank you both for having me.